Apparently, nobody heard about General Calrissian, a man who took command of the entire rebel starfighter fleet at the Battle of Endor, personally piloted the Millennium Falcon into the superstructure of the second Death Star, fired into the main reactor, and got out alive, somehow didn't make the list of the rebellion's most competent officers. We did a whole video, 10 entries, and this man wasn't in it. The comments noticed. 468 likes on a single reply that read, word for word, "Apparently you didn't hear about General Calrissian." Fair point. Let's fix that. The Rebel Alliance won the Galactic Civil War without a single Jedi commanding a fleet. At Yavin, Luke Skywalker closed his eyes, switched off his targeting computer, and followed a dead man's voice to make the shot. At Endor, he walked onto an Imperial shuttle and surrendered to his father. Those aren't military command decisions, they're acts of faith. The officers and pilots who actually managed the fleets, planned the assaults, and flew the attack runs, Lando Calrissian, Gial Ackbar, Wedge Antilles, Crix Madine, did it with training, experience, and nerve. No force, no prophecy, just the work. They keep getting forgotten. We're not going to do that today. Start with what Lando was before he was a general, because the rank matters more once you know the road to it. In the Legends timeline, Lando Calrissian acquired the Millennium Falcon in a game of sabacc on Bespin, won it from a professional gambler named Six Truvy who couldn't cover his debt. In the current canon, he had the ship before the events of Solo, which puts it roughly a decade before the Battle of Yavin. Either way, the man owned that ship. He flew it, lived in it, called it his. Then he lost it. In canon, Han Solo beat him in a game of Corellian Spike Sabacc on Numidian Prime, went all in, and walked away with the Falcon as his prize. Lando Calrissian, the man who would eventually fly that ship into the Death Star, once watched another man take it from him in a card game. That is context. We will come back to it. Between losing the Falcon and being handed it back, Lando ran Cloud City. He won the entire mining colony in a sabacc game too, a pattern emerges, and served as its Baron Administrator. Not just a title. Cloud City was a functioning economy with thousands of residents. Lando was managing infrastructure, negotiating trade, keeping a city in the clouds operational. Whatever else you call him, the man knew how to run something. His military career started in earnest at a place called Tanab. Return of the Jedi establishes this in dialogue. Lando references his little maneuver at the Battle of Tanab when pressed on how he earned the rank of general. The battle involved defeating a pirate fleet, the Norrelak freebooters, in orbit of the planet. The research is clear on one thing. Tanab was a contributing factor to the promotion, not the only one. It wasn't a single stunt that handed him stars. It was a demonstrated tactical capability, combined with service alongside Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, that earned him the commission. The rank was real. General Calrissian. Combat tested before Endor. That rank assigned him a specific role at the most important battle of the war. Lando was designated leader of the rebellion's starfighter forces for the assault on Death Star 2. Admiral Ackbar commanded the fleet from Home 1. Lando commanded the fighters. They were equals in the chain of command, not a hierarchy. The sources are clear that Lando suggested tactical adjustments to Ackbar, not issued orders to him. Two senior officers coordinating in real time. That distinction actually matters, because what Lando chose to say during the trap reveal is one of the most consequential tactical interventions in the entire war. The rebel fleet drops out of hyperspace. The Death Star's shield is still up. It's a trap. The Emperor knew they were coming. Ackbar's instinct in that moment was to retreat, pull back, regroup, survive. That isn't a cowardly response. It's textbook military logic when you find yourself flying into a prepared ambush with no clear attack vector. Ackbar's "it's a trap" line has become a meme, but the fuller story is that his first operational response was to disengage. Lando Calrissian talked him out of it. Screen Rant documented this directly. Ackbar's famous moment steals Lando Calrissian's thunder. The alternate scripting had Lando leading that recognition. But more importantly, Lando then proposed the tactic that kept the fleet alive long enough to matter. Engage the Imperial Star Destroyers in close-range broadsides. Deny the Death Star a clean line of fire at the fleet. If the ships are fighting each other at knife distance, the Death Star can't fire without hitting its own vessels. Lando read the geometry of the trap and found the one move that turned a killing field into a survivable brawl. Then the shield came down, and Lando went in. He piloted the Millennium Falcon, Han Solo's ship, his old ship, through the superstructure of the second Death Star, with Wedge Antilles flying alongside him in an X-wing. They reached the main reactor. Wedge fired proton torpedoes at the power regulator on the North Tower. Lando fired into the main reactor itself. Both of them got out. The Death Star exploded. Now sit with the specific mechanics of that sequence for a moment. The reactor run required navigating the interior of a battle station while it was actively in the process of being destroyed. There was no targeting computer telling Lando where the reactor was. There was no force guiding his hand. There was a pilot who knew how to fly a ship under pressure, who had flown that specific ship before, and who chose to take it into the one place that no reasonable person would go. Here is the lore connection that rarely gets stated aloud. Lando lost the Falcon to Han in a card game. Han then flew it for years, made it his own, installed the modifications, logged the parsecs. At Cloud City, Lando handed Han over to Darth Vader, not out of malice, but because Vader arrived with a fleet and offered a deal that kept the city's 45,000 residents alive. Vader altered that deal twice. Lando eventually helped Leia and Chewbacca escape, ordered Cloud City's evacuation, and joined the mission to pull Han out of Jabba's palace. He dressed as a skiff guard and waited. At Endor, Han lent him the Falcon. The ship came home to its original pilot. And Lando Calrissian, the man who once lost that ship, who then gave Han Solo to the Empire and spent years trying to earn that back, flew it into the Empire's greatest weapon and destroyed it from the inside. He handed Han to Vader at Cloud City. He destroyed Vader's Emperor's war machine at Endor, in Han's ship. The Falcon's final act as a weapon of war was piloted by the first man who ever called it his. That's not a metaphor. Those are just the facts, assembled in the right order. One comment in the original video's replies, sitting at 136 likes, said something quieter than the others. Lando becoming a general meant a lot to me. Didn't see that a lot. A black man holding that rank in one of cinema's most iconic military structures, earning it through tactical ability at Tanab and executing the decisive attack run at Endor. The comment didn't need to explain itself further. It didn't. The likes said enough. Gial Ackbar is the depth play. Every Star Wars fan knows the name. The meme, the line, the Mon Calamari face. Fewer people can tell you what he actually did for 35 years. Start at the beginning. During the Clone Wars, Ackbar held the rank of captain of the Mon Calamari Guard. He participated in the events surrounding the Battle of Mon Cala, was captured by separatist forces, and was later freed. That's not a bit part. That's combat experience predating the Galactic Civil War by nearly 2 decades. By the time Ackbar commanded a rebel fleet, he had been in and around military conflict for most of his adult life. His flagship was Home 1, and at Endor, he commanded the Alliance fleet from it. The Battle of Endor wasn't Ackbar's first fight. He had commanded at the Battle of Baz Pity, a Legends engagement where his forces fought a rebel action and he was injured, requiring rescue and a Bacta tank. He was present at the Battle of Jakku in canon, roughly a year after Endor, where he led New Republic forces to a decisive victory over Imperial remnants and effectively ended organized Imperial resistance. That battle forced the Empire's survivors into the unknown regions, the retreat that the First Order would later emerge from. Ackbar was there for that door closing. Then there's Bilbringi. In the Legends Thrawn trilogy, Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command, Grand Admiral Thrawn launches a campaign against the New Republic approximately 5 years after Endor. Ackbar commands the New Republic response. The campaign ends at the Battle of Bilbringi, where Ackbar leads a fleet to retrieve a crystal gravfield trap, technology designed to counter the cloaked asteroids Thrawn had positioned over Coruscant as a strategic threat to the capital. Thrawn had set Bilbringi as a deliberate trap. He anticipated Ackbar's move to Bilbringi, had prepared for it, and by the battle's opening geometry, the New Republic was walking into a prepared position. Thrawn was assassinated by his Nogri bodyguard Rook during the battle. The Imperial campaign collapsed. New Republic victory. The honest accounting here? Thrawn won the tactical engagement at Bilbringi. The research documents this plainly. Ackbar feinted toward Tangrene and struck at Bilbringi, believing he'd find a second Endor, but Thrawn had already anticipated the sequence. Ackbar was beaten tactically. He won the campaign because Thrawn's bodyguard killed him mid-battle. That's a complicated kind of victory, and pretending otherwise would irritate every lore-accurate fan in this audience instantly. But here's what doesn't get discussed. The Thrawn pincer. Among the named tactical innovations credited to Ackbar in Legends, the Ackbar Slash, a refined version of the Kenobi offensive, there is a maneuver called the Thrawn pincer. Ackbar named a tactic after his enemy, not as tribute, as intelligence. He studied Thrawn's strategic logic so thoroughly that he isolated a specific maneuver, cataloged it, named it, and built a counter. The name Thrawn pincer in Ackbar's tactical library means Ackbar had looked at how Thrawn cornered fleets, broken down its mechanics, and given it a designation so his own commanders could recognize it when it was deployed against them. Thrawn's tactical genius literally lived inside the New Republic's defensive playbook, because Ackbar put it there. He didn't just fight the greatest Imperial strategist of the post-Endor era. He dissected him and turned the dissection into doctrine. The lore connection that rarely gets stated is this. Both Gial Ackbar and Mithra Nurodo were aliens commanding military structures dominated by humans who found them suspicious, alien, harder to trust than a human officer with a familiar face. Ackbar rose to Supreme Commander of the New Republic Defense Force, the highest military post in the government, as a Mon Calamari. Thrawn rose to Grand Admiral in an empire that explicitly considered non-humans inferior. Both of them did it on intellectual merit, on tactical brilliance, on results that human commanders couldn't match. They were mirror images in that specific way, the same kind of mind, the same kind of outsider, pointing at each other across a war. The difference between them was entirely which side of the line they stood on. Ackbar wasn't afraid of Thrawn. The research doesn't support the fan comment that claimed Thrawn considered Ackbar his only serious adversary. No direct Zahn quote to that effect exists in the sources. What the sources do establish is that Ackbar and Thrawn faced each other directly at Bilbringi, that Ackbar developed named tactics specifically calibrated to Thrawn's methods, and that Zahn's own text places Ackbar repeatedly in Thrawn's strategic calculations. That's a rivalry. It was the highest stakes chess match the New Republic ever played, and Ackbar played it longer than anyone. He signed the Declaration of a New Republic. He served on the Inner Council. He designed and improved the B-Wing starfighter, a craft that saw combat at Endor and beyond. He fought in 3 galactic-scale wars at senior rank. The meme is one line. The career is 3 decades. Wedge Antilles gets covered in every Star Wars competence conversation, and somehow it's never enough. The original video touched his flying record. It didn't touch what he built afterward. At the Battle of Yavin, Wedge flew Red Squadron in the trench run on the first Death Star alongside Luke Skywalker and Biggs Darklighter. His X-Wing took damage, a hit to his stabilizer, and he pulled out. Biggs was killed. Garvin Dryce was killed. Almost every other Rebel pilot who flew that day was killed. Luke made the shot with his targeting computer off, guided by the Force, by the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi telling him to trust something he couldn't see. Wedge survived because he flew smart, recognized when his ship couldn't make the run, and lived to fight again. Luke used the Force. Wedge used judgment. At the Battle of Endor, Wedge flew into the Death Star II's superstructure alongside Lando Calrissian. He fired proton torpedoes at the power regulator on the north tower of the reactor and got out alive. 2 Death Stars, 2 survivals. In both cases, the man who destroyed the weapon with Luke Skywalker did it with skill, while Luke was doing something else. At Yavin, he made the shot when Luke's guidance system was already tracking. At Endor, Luke was on the Death Star, surrendering to Vader, while Wedge was inside it, shooting the reactor. The Force got the credit. Wedge got the sequel. What Wedge did with that survival is the part that doesn't get discussed. In the Legends X-Wing novel series by Michael Stackpole, Wedge Antilles rebuilt Rogue Squadron after Endor and commanded it through one of the most operationally complex campaigns of the post-war era, the liberation of Coruscant from Imperial control. The unit's battle tabs by that point read Hoth, Endor, Bakura. Wedge commanded it through the street-level, politically complicated fight to retake the Imperial capital. That's not flying heroics. That's campaign-level strategy applied to asymmetric urban warfare. Then, he built something new. Wraith Squadron. Aaron Alston's contribution to the Legends X-Wing series, starting with Book 5, is the story of Wedge Antilles creating an entirely different kind of unit. The publisher description is direct. It's Wedge Antilles' boldest creation, a covert action unit of X-Wing fighters, its pilots drawn from the dregs of other units, cast-offs and rejects being given one last chance. Wedge took the pilots that other commanders had given up on, the unconventional ones, the difficult ones, the ones who didn't fit the mold, and turned them into operators capable of running commando missions that no standard fighter squadron could attempt. Rogue Squadron was a fighter unit first, commando capable second. Wraith Squadron was built the other way around. The pilots were expected to operate on the ground, infiltrate, sabotage, gather intelligence, and then climb back into their cockpits. It was Wedge's thesis that the most dangerous pilots were the ones who could think outside the cockpit as well as inside it. He recruited for unconventional thinking and then applied discipline to it. He eventually reached the rank of general. A commander who started the war as a line pilot at Yavin, pulled out of the trench run with a damaged stabilizer, and ended it leading multi-squadron combined arms operations. No force, no destiny. A career built one mission at a time. In the Rogue Squadron novel, there's a line that captures how Wedge understood command. He announces himself to the unit simply, "I'm Wedge Antilles, the commander of Rogue Squadron." No speech, no ceremony, just the fact of it. That tone carries through everything. He is the least theatrical officer in the Alliance, which is maybe why the theatrical victories, the 2 Death Stars, keep getting attributed to the people who did make speeches. Wedge just flew in, fired, and flew out. The highest engagement comment in the original video's replies condensed his whole career into a single image. The only starfighter pilot in the galaxy with 2 Death Stars painted on the side of his X-Wing. That image earns itself. No kill-marking tradition needs to be invented for it to land. The math does the work. Wedge Antilles is the only person who was present for both destructions, flew both attack runs, and escaped both explosions. In a war defined by those 2 events, he is the only pilot whose record includes both of them, start to finish. That isn't a tribute. That is a statistic. Crix Madine walked into the Rebel Alliance carrying something neither Lando, nor Ackbar, nor Wedge could offer. He knew the Empire from the inside. The Return of the Jedi briefing scene establishes Madine as a general in the Alliance, standing alongside Ackbar and Mon Mothma to brief the fleet on the Endor operation. His specific assignment was the ground component, the team that would land on the forest moon and deactivate the shield generator protecting Death Star 2. Without that shield going down, the entire space assault was irrelevant. Lando's attack run, Ackbar's fleet engagement, Wedge's reactor shot, all of it contingent on Crix Madine's ground plan working. He had been a highly decorated Imperial officer before his defection. That background meant the rebellion acquired something rare when he came over. A senior officer who understood Imperial operational security, Imperial facility design, Imperial troop deployment doctrine, Imperial chain of command. When Madine planned the infiltration of the Endor bunker, he wasn't guessing how Imperial installations were defended. He had operated inside that system. He knew the checkpoints, the patrol patterns, the blind spots. The Endor ground plan worked. Han Solo's team found the bunker, got inside, and deactivated the shield. The plan succeeded with some improvisation. Ewoks weren't in the original briefing, but the structural design of the operation was Madine's. The shield came down on schedule. That's the metric. His rank wasn't ceremonial. He planned and executed the ground component of the Alliance's most important operation, against a target he understood better than anyone else in that briefing room. The Force destroyed the first Death Star. One pilot, eyes closed, guided by something he couldn't explain. The Force didn't destroy the second one. Lando Calrissian destroyed the second Death Star, in a ship he used to own, by flying it somewhere no targeting system could follow him. Wedge Antilles fired the reactor's North Tower kill shot by reading the geometry of the space and putting the torpedoes exactly where they needed to go. The shield that made both of those shots possible was down because Crix Madine had planned an infiltration against a facility he knew from the inside. The fleet that was still alive when the shield dropped was alive because Gial Ackbar had kept his nerve, and because Lando Calrissian had given him a tactical argument worth keeping it for. 4 officers, 0 midichlorians, 1 destroyed battle station. Ackbar's post-war record: Supreme Commander of the New Republic Defense Force, 3 galactic-scale wars, a tactical library that includes maneuvers named after the man he spent years opposing. The career of someone who studied war as a discipline. Wedge Antilles, rebuilt Rogue Squadron, founded Wraith Squadron from rejected pilots, reached general rank in Legends continuity, and remains the only person in the Star Wars galaxy with confirmed participation in the destruction of both Death Stars. 2 missions, 2 survivals, neither one aided by the Force. Lando Calrissian, won Cloud City in a card game, ran it as a functioning government, earned a general's commission through combat at Tanab, made the tactical call at Endor that kept the Alliance fleet in the fight, flew the Millennium Falcon into the Death Star 2's superstructure, and came out the other side. Crix Madine, defected from the Empire, brought Imperial operational knowledge to the rebellion, and designed the ground assault that made every other victory at Endor structurally possible. The rebellion's most decisive victory, the one that ended Palpatine's empire and collapsed the Imperial war machine, was planned and executed by those 4 people. The Force got Luke to the throne room. These 4 got everybody else home. The credit has been misallocated for 40 years. Now you know where it actually belongs. Subscribe if you want more of this.